Yeah, so excited. Everyone, thanks for joining AWS On Air live at reInvent. I see some people, we've got some people from Maryland, Dallas-Fort Worth, Virginia, Montreal. We're going to be looking at the chat, so if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat. We're going to be looking out for that. And we've got a really exciting session right now on one of the OG service, S3. Coming up. But first, let's intro of who we've got here in this amazing crew going on. So my name is Jillian. I'm a startup solutions architect. I've got a fantastic co-host with a unicorn. So almost like 2 in 1, Kyle.
2 unicorns in 1, I guess. Anyway, hey, it's still me, Kyle Dickinson, senior solution architect that does threat detection and incident response stuff, coming at you live from reInvent 2022 in Vegas. And I have acquired a new friend in the last 10 minutes, thanks to the executive producer, Tabitha Bennett. Hi.
And we've got 2 fantastic people from the S3 team here. So yeah, Peter, introduce yourself.
Hello, Jillian, Kyle. I'm Pete Deming. I work on the S3 product management team.
Fantastic. And Ian.
Hey folks, Ian McGarry, Senior Manager for S3. I think my audio is working. And yep. Yeah, excited to be here today to chat to you a bit about what we've been working on.
Oh, fantastic. I definitely want to get into it. And we've got people from all different skill levels and experience levels. So I think we should just start off with really level setting of like, what is S3?
S3, the simple storage service. So as the name implies, it is all about simplicity. So you can pretty much use S3 for really limitless scale. So virtually limitless scale to store pretty much any type of data. So S3, we store everything from data lake information to backup information. And I think, Ian can agree or disagree, but in my time here on S3, the biggest change I've seen is that S3 is no longer just a place to store data that you've made a copy of, but now we're just seeing explosive growth in new data being created in S3. So we've got 280 trillion objects now, Jillian, stored in S3 with 11 nines of data durability. We're processing 100 million transactions per second. So every second that we're talking right now, 100 million transactions. So that's really the biggest change I've seen in S3 is it's now the de facto sort of standard for cloud storage.
So I'm no wizard at math or anything, but that sounds like a lot of numbers. That's very impressive at this global scale that this is operating at.
And how about my ability to recall those numbers like that? It's almost like right? Thank you.
Thank you. On your arm, I see it right there.
That's right. I've got it on my hand right here written down. We're actually really proud of it. So it's something we track pretty closely, and it's what we do here.
I can see why, because that is so darn cool. I can't think of anything that reaches anything close to those numbers and scale. And I mean, also S3 is thought to be the first AWS service, right?
Yeah, 16 years. So every year when it rolls around, March 14th, Pi Day, we celebrate the birthday of Amazon S3 as really one of the original OGs of AWS services. So S3 is 16 years going strong. Again, 280 trillion objects and 100 million transactions per second. So I've been in the storage industry a very long time, as you can see kind of by all the lines on my forehead here, but it blows my mind every day just about how much data is coming in and out of S3 every single second of every single day.
Now, it sounds like you're coming to us today with something that's awesome that even makes the access to this data even more resilient. What are you going to be telling us about today?
Well, Ian's team has been working really hard on a feature that we've been asking them to put together. It's called S3 MultiRegion Access Point Failover Controls. And that's a really long name. We don't expect you to remember that right away. But we'll show you what it looks like and how it works. But it's really all about giving customers direct control over where S3 is routing their traffic between our different regions for really for business continuity. If you want to fail over your traffic from one location to another, maybe you're doing some DR testing or some application resiliency planning. Now you have that control at your fingertips that Ian's team has built to let you change like a traffic cop and shift traffic from maybe a region in US East to a region in US West, all in under 2 minutes.
Sounds like you're making things for our customers and builders a lot easier too.
It is. 90% of our roadmap comes directly from customer enhancement requests. And this is one of those, maybe to a different region for testing, for failover, for failback, for any purpose they desire. And that's really what this feature is all about. So we're excited to talk to you about it today. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I think a question that comes to mind when thinking about, okay, failover, that's going to happen multi-region. So I think, Ian, I mean, maybe if you can kind of expand on, like, does the developer who is thinking about how to actually plan for this resiliency plan, do they need to think about it? Is it from like the networking level?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the interesting thing about multi-region access points is the actual routing of the traffic and failover happens at the network level. And so for us to make a decision about which region we route your traffic to is made at that network level. And so you have the same IP addresses that you're routing your traffic to all the time, but behind the scenes, depending on what your configuration you've set, we're making a decision about where to route it. When multi-region access points launched last year on Storage Day, we launched them with active mode only. And so if you set up a multi-region access point with 3 regions behind it, 3 buckets, you would be routed to the closest one to you. So your clients, if they're distributed all over the world, they would be routed to the closest bucket to them. Today, we're changing that a bit in that we're giving you that control to decide where all of your traffic goes. And so you can set one region to active, another region to passive, or conduct a failover between those 2 states. And your traffic will then route to the active region. So that's all happening at the network level. There's no change of IP address, so your clients can't override this behavior. It's same IP address, but the packets are changing based on what configuration you've set. For a developer, it's as simple as making an API call.
And so this is happening at the network level. Or now you mentioned that you were going to show us how this works. You all have a demo, it sounds like, which I'm a huge fan of. I love seeing how these new services work, especially coming from a perspective of how can we enable our builders to use this cool stuff as soon as possible. Is there anything that you want to cover before we go into our demo? Because we want to give you plenty of time to go through this new feature to show our builders how easy it is to manage this.
Yeah, I think Peter's going to get the demo ready, but maybe just while he's working on that, just to cover one more small thing and to help developers kind of visualize how all of this works. When you create a multi-region access point, you set your buckets behind it, and then we create a new endpoint for you to route your traffic to. And then either using the console, the SDK, or CLI, or you can use the APIs directly, you can change the state from active to passive with those API calls. So it has a really nice console experience, which Pete will show you. But there's also the ability to do that and bake it into your, if you have software that's monitoring metrics and understanding where you want your traffic to go, you can make API calls directly to that. And then in terms of the routing aspect of it, multi-region access point is built on another AWS technology called Global Accelerator, which advertises its IP space globally and will pick up your traffic very close to where your clients are using, as close as possible. So AWS is a very large distributed network. S3 is not in all of those locations, but Global Accelerator is, and it's advertising its prefixes or IP space on those close points of presence to clients. And so the traffic gets picked up really, really quickly and routed over our backbone. So there's a nice performance benefit out of that as well.
That is like so fascinating. And I think, yeah, definitely, I'm more excited to see the demo now, just being able to kind of visually see how this definitely all works.
All right, let's take a look. So we've got a couple of buckets here. And Ian's done a great job coming up with a really innovative name for this multi-region access point. We called it Ian-test-multi-region access point 1. So great job, Ian. All right, so we've got 2 buckets here, and we're replicating bidirectionally here. So you can see we've got 2 arrows pointing at each other to indicate how we've set up replication. So we're replicating the data with S3 cross-region replication. What we've added here today, we launched it just this morning, is really the failover capability. S3's had replication for close to 10 years now, but what we've added with this feature is then the ability to fail over through this global endpoint between, in our case, we've got Mumbai here in Asia Pacific South-1 and in Tokyo here in Asia Pacific Northeast-3. So really what we're kind of focused on is the ability to change at any time where S3 is routing your traffic. So we've got 2 buckets, 2 regions, and at any time when we select these 2 regions, we can initiate a failover. And the failover is really more like a traffic cop. So in Ian's case here, he can now fail over all of the traffic from Osaka to Mumbai or from Mumbai to Osaka, all in less than 2 minutes. So you can actually watch in CloudWatch as the traffic starts to die down in the region that was the active region and picks up, that was in your passive region and now picks up in your active region as you flip-flop the 2. So let's take a look at what that looks like here. So we've got 2 regions selected. What we're going to do is we're going to stop directing new traffic to our Mumbai region, and we're going to start directing new traffic to our Osaka region. And so this all completes really in less than 2 minutes. And again, you can watch that traffic die down in your previously active region, and then you can watch it ramp up in your newly active region. You have to always keep one region active, but you can flip-flop at any time, and you can have up to 17. Did I get that right, Ian? 17 regions behind a multi-region access point. So 17 different regions, all behind one global endpoint now for S3 that you can then control the failover between at any time. So that's really about how easy it is. And you can see here, as we've gone to our failover tab, we can now see the new status here for each of our regions. So now Mumbai is passive and Osaka is now active. And if we wanted to flip-flop that back, go back to our failover, run another failover, and now that traffic will start shifting. You can see we've successfully initiated a failover, and the console will refresh here. So it really is that easy.
That's crazy. That is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, this looks so simple. I mean, do they actually have to like do anything to really enable this?
Not much. In fact, existing customers that already have multi-region access points, Ian's team has already backfilled those with this capability. So there's no button to turn on or there's nothing to enable. It's just already there, ready to go. So in our launch blog today, we gave an example of kind of Godzilla coming in and maybe wrecking an undersea telecommunications cable. The world is now connected very tightly with these undersea cables. And so we used an example of Godzilla kind of wrecking an undersea cable. And maybe that's the reason why you wanted to shift your traffic away from Osaka and to Mumbai. And then when Osaka's back up and running, you can then fail back over to Osaka after Godzilla kind of retreats back into the deep.
And we know today as well that a lot of customers have replicated their data to other regions for peace of mind most often. This is a nice way for them to quickly take advantage of that data. So it's not just sitting there. You can actually have a multi-region access point set up on your main bucket and your backup bucket, and you can then switch between the 2 as you please. So it's a really nice way to take advantage of that data that you've replicated for peace of mind.
And if you go back to an active configuration that Ian talked about here at the beginning, you can always toggle individual regions by going to their routing status and setting both maybe to active. So this gives you really direct control over your configuration, whether you want to run in an active where we're now trying to find the closest bucket to route to for an upload or a download from S3, or if you want to run in an active passive configuration where you have one region, maybe that's running S3 intelligent tiering, where that copy isn't accessed very often except after a failover. So you get month after month of cost optimization for that secondary passive copy. Now that controls directly in customer hands.
Well, it sounds like there's some best practices that you can share with us when it comes to something like intelligent tiering and also cost optimization while using this failover methodology.
That's right. I think probably our recommendation is, I think intelligent tiering is a great storage class to choose for your secondary copy or your tertiary copy or even your primary copy. It's really the only storage class in the industry today that provides you with automatic cost optimization month after month. So we look at the access patterns of the data. In this case, if we've got a passive region, let's say in Mumbai, and we'll go ahead and make Mumbai passive here, change that to passive. If intelligent tiering is our storage class for the data stored in Mumbai, every month, every 30 days that goes by, there's a cost optimization happening because that data hasn't been accessed. And then after 90 days, we look to move that data further into a cheaper class of storage. That's our archive instant access tier inside of intelligent tiering. So now you get that cost optimization month after month after month after month. And that really then really helps out after a failover because there's no additional retrieval cost that you have to pay for now this data that's suddenly becoming active after you fail over. Now you're using that data, creating new data. We just simply mark that data now as frequently accessed and return it back to the frequently accessed tier. You don't have to lift a finger to do that with intelligent tiering. So it pairs really well in this case with an active passive configuration that we have here now with failover controls.
It sounds like an awesome opportunity to create these recovery scenarios too, because I know when talking to customers about disaster recovery or business continuity planning, having an active, having a full copy of your data without any sort of way to kind of minimize the cost of having a copy of that is typically something that comes to mind. And some businesses may require it because of their commitments that they have to maybe customers that consume their services. But the fact that you can use intelligent tiering and reduce the cost but maintain resiliency while using this new feature release is just mind-blowing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's something that we're really proud of. It's taken us a while, Kyle, to get here, but we're really happy with the job Ian and his team have done with this. And so this is something that you can get up and running in a day. It doesn't require you to make any changes to your buckets. Ian can start with 2 buckets in 2 different locations that he already has today. He doesn't have to make special or new magic buckets or anything like that. He can use existing replication, doesn't have to change any of that. It's kind of a crawl, walk, run. You can start with what you already have today, get your replication going, and then you can layer on this new global endpoint right over the top of those existing buckets without having to make any changes to your current bucket configuration.
I love all this. I was just gonna say, I love all these call outs, and especially Peter, like even just going back to intelligent tiering. And for those who maybe that's like something that's completely new to you, haven't heard of it before. I mean, that is definitely something that you want to take advantage of. If you're using S3, you got to use intelligent tiering. In terms of cost optimization, it is, I guess, foundational. And there's another thing that I wanted to go back to, Peter, when you were talking about like you could even have multiple regions under a single endpoint. So like if for other customers where they are operating in multiple regions, is that a recommended approach?
Ian, talk about why this global endpoint is so powerful and why it's so flexible with kind of, it can take traffic from 3 different sources. So do you want to talk a little bit about like the 3 different ways to get data through a multi-region access point, Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. The single endpoint is really the most powerful piece of the multi-region access point because S3 is a regional service. It has different endpoints for different regions. And if you want to use S3 in different regions, you have to use those endpoints. And so in your applications, you have to bake in that understanding that there's multiple regions and you have to be able to access those, and you have to be able to set up access either through an internet gateway or something like that to go cross-region to access that, or VPC peering, something like that. So the beauty of the multi-region access point is you have a single endpoint that you bake into your applications, and then controlling of where the traffic goes is actually an orthogonal API call to shift that. So you don't actually have to touch your applications and tell them, hey, now route traffic here. That's actually happening all on the AWS side. I think that's the beauty or the the power of a multi-region access point is you now have that ability to get that kind of logic without having to bake it into your applications. And it's funny, just to go on a small tangent here, but it's very interesting to see how customers are starting to use multi-region access points. It's not just about recovery. We're seeing cases where people are using it just for cross-region access because, again, at the end of the day, it's private link if you're using it within a VPC, but you can access any region, S3 in any region from within your VPC now. And so we've seen customers setting up a multi-region access point, having one bucket active, the other passive, and they're basically getting that cross-region routing of traffic, which today you either have to have an internet gateway for, or you have to set up VPC peering and use private link in the other regions. So this is a really nice way to do cross-region routing without having to go through VPC peering or an internet gateway. You get that private backbone-only routing while being able to access S3 in other regions. So very, very neat way of using multi-region access points without the recovery aspect in mind.
Simplifying security. I love it.
Yeah. Anything else, I guess, you'd want to add in terms of what if someone wants to think about this as part of their like site reliability strategy?
Definitely give it a try. That's the biggest way to kind of get really comfortable with this type of feature is you have to try it for yourself to really get comfortable and gain that confidence, I think, to know that that failover is going to complete when you press that button. In fact, that's probably one of the things I'd love to talk about just for 1 second more is the failover infrastructure is also highly redundant. So we talked about how Amazon S3, 280 trillion objects and 11 nines of durability and the most availability zones out there today. The failover infrastructure, Ian's team has built that in 5 redundant AWS regions. So when you go to click that failover button here, you can actually make that failover call to 5 different redundant regions that have the failover infrastructure in there, so that even if you don't have a bucket in those regions, even if you don't have any other infrastructure, when you go to press this failover button, you know that you've got 5 AWS regions there ready to go to handle that failover request. So we'd really encourage you to try out this feature. You can see how simple it is here to set up. You can see how easy it is to create replication rules directly from this multi-region access point. You can see how easy it is to fail over, and you can see how easy it is to really kind of get up and running. But until you click that failover button and have that confidence for yourself, I think it's great that Ian and I are here telling you about it, but go try it for yourself. Again, you don't need any special buckets or anything like that. You can start with existing buckets. You can make new buckets, 1 bucket per region, up to 17 different AWS regions, all behind one global endpoint. So try it out for yourself. That failover infrastructure is there in 5 regions, and it's ready to go for you to try it out.
Dang, that's awesome.
It is. We're pretty excited about it. You don't have to replicate all of your data, Kyle. You can replicate just a prefix. You can replicate just by tag if you want to replicate the whole bucket. And that's one of the differences is that precision and flexibility to replicate just the data that you care about, just the data that you want to have in multiple regions. You don't have to replicate everything, Kyle. You can keep some data here.
Is awesome. Because if you have a bucket that contains different levels of business critical information, but you want to have it matched to a different like recovery or availability, you're able to scope that down instead of saying, well, it's the whole bucket, so there we go. You could say, well, it's this prefix that has our awesome cat meme photos or any duck-billed platypus photos that we might have, and say, all right, only send the cat memes over and don't send the duck-billed platypus photos over.
That's right. So you can filter by prefix, you can filter by object tags, whole bucket, some of the bucket. You can choose what storage class you're going to replicate into. You can have replication metrics enabled so you can watch the replication progress and understand how far behind are you, how many objects are left to replicate. Do you want us to replicate the metadata bidirectionally? Do you want us to replicate deletes? It's really all just kind of, as you can see here, just checkboxes, kind of point, click, shoot for how you want to configure your replication options to kind of give you that pinpoint control.
And because it's logging the CloudWatch, you're able to set up, metrics and alarms for if something's successful or when something is finished, or if there's like a certain threshold that you need to meet, I would imagine. So, you got that flexibility there too, to extend your monitoring and alerting for this service as well. So that's pretty cool.
Ian, do you want to talk about replication time control? Want to mention that?
We actually,
absolutely.
I wish we could. We actually have to wrap up just now. I know this is something I think a lot of people are definitely really going to want to check out. I mean, I say every person needs to be thinking about this, if not now, at some point soon. So where can people start to learn more, get started?
Sure. Just head over to the S3 feature page, and on the features tab, you can see it right down on the feature drop-down list. So if you just go out to the Amazon S3 product page, go to features, and multi-region access points is right there in the drop-down list. So it's easy to get started and understand a little bit more about the feature.
Way too cool. Ian, Peter, it's been a pleasure to sit at the same desk with you.
Awesome.
This is an awesome feature release. Congratulations. Really. I can't believe you're able to accomplish this in such a short amount of time. As far as the replication goes, you said minutes. That's powerful, especially for resiliency. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for the people to actually start using this. So thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much, Ian. This is AWS On Air. Yep, stick around for the rest of the week.